Do you want the good news or the bad news? It's Friday, so let's start with the good news. The JCVI, who advise UK health departments on immunisation, are not recommending mass vaccination of children aged between 12 and 15, limiting the availability of the jab to just vulnerable youngsters. This decision is something that many of us have been pushing for months. With children facing a negligible threat from the virus, why would you take the risk of any side effects, however remote, when they just don't need it? This decision restores my faith in the medical authorities. There appears to have been an outbreak of common sense, and let's hope this is going to be the shape of things to come. Going forward, vaccines should be focused on those in vulnerable groups, and I think we should consider making the jab available around the world to communities who don't have access to it. This news has been received with cynicism and caution by some who fear that politicians, unions and other jab-happy interest groups will continue to campaign for children to be vaccinated, and it is a valid concern. However, with the JCVI arguing it's not justified for healthy kids, it's hard to see how politicians could be seen to ignore this guidance. How could they row back from that? Would millions of parents seriously queue up to have their 12-year-olds jabbed after being told by the authorities it's not worth the risk? I doubt it. So, that was the good news. Here's the bad news. We're hearing that the government intend to review and renew the draconian Coronavirus Act, cementing their unprecedented powers over our lives for another 6 months. Credit to the Liberal Democrats and a handful of principled Tory backbenchers who will fight this. But with almost guaranteed support from Labour, I doubt they will succeed. So why are they doing this? Well, because they want the ability to lock us down yet again with all of the damage that we know that brings. A year ago, if I'd told you that hospital admissions from the disease would be a fraction of what they were, that the link between cases and sad deaths had been decoupled, and if I told you that over 70% of the population had been vaccinated, you'd have bitten my hand off. You would have assumed that Britain would be freedom central, street parties, bunting, and the old normal back with a vengeance. Well, no such luck. The government are also still pursuing the idea of COVID vaccine passports, which will create the infrastructure by which your medical status is linked to certain rights, services and freedoms. Do you seriously think any of this would be rolled back when the pandemic is over? Do me a favour. Over the last 18 months, all of the COVID measures have been as debatable as they have been damaging. 3 national lockdowns in, we have one of the highest COVID death tolls in the world. Sweden had no lockdowns, no mask mandates, and boast a lower per capita death rate from COVID. And in an astonishing development, predictably swept under the carpet by most of the media, but not here at GBNews, no lockdown Sweden have just banned the most vaccinated nation on earth, Israel, from entering their country. No lockdown Sweden have banned jab-happy Israel. Extraordinary stuff. Now, their astonishing vaccine rollout notwithstanding, Israel are in the grip of another wave of the virus. I welcome the vaccine. I'm double jabbed, but whisper it. It's not the game changer that we all hoped for. Don't take my word for it. Professor of Infectious Diseases at Harvard Medical School, if you've heard of it, Martin Kulldorff, reports that in Israel, vaccinated individuals had 27 times higher risk of symptomatic COVID infection compared to those with natural immunity from prior COVID disease. I've got to repeat that in case you misunderstood it. Vaccinated individuals had 27 times higher risk of symptomatic COVID infection compared to those that have had COVID and recovered. The vaccine is clearly helpful in the reduction of hospitalizations, severe illness and death, which is great, but it doesn't appear to significantly blunt transmission. So a healthy person having it is arguably not saving lives, but actually the opposite. In fact, based upon Martin Kulldorff's comments, you could argue that those who have had COVID and recovered, and therefore boast the strongest immunity, should enjoy the most freedom. and public adulation. Maybe people should put it on their Twitter bio and post about it on Facebook. I've had COVID, I'm saving lives. Perhaps we should lock down the vaccinated, who Kulldorff argues enjoy less immunity from the disease. The vaccinated, they're quite dangerous, aren't they? Of course, I jest. But do you see my point? For this long-awaited, much-heralded vaccine, the halo has slipped. It's not the game-changer we hope for, it's not the silver bullet. Meanwhile, the government want the ability to inflict another 6 months of more economic and societal damage on the country. Nicola Sturgeon has hinted that the coronavirus measures could be permanent in Scotland. Now, there's a surprise. Anyone supporting an independent Scotland had better get used to the idea of state control. In terms of COVID measures, we did everything, and countries like Sweden, by comparison, did very little. But the outcomes appear to be eerily similar. Could it be that having had fewer measures, Sweden enjoy, wait for it, here we go, I'm going to say this, are you ready? Herd immunity. Cancel me now. As a result of their light touch approach, have they advantaged their community? Who knows? But rising cases among the vaccinated in Israel has surely killed stone dead the idea of COVID vaccine passports, because it dilutes the idea that being vaccinated saves the lives of others. Just imagine if we'd had a policy for the last year and a half of protecting the vulnerable, for whom COVID is extraordinarily dangerous and very nasty, and let younger, healthier people get the virus, recover, and enjoy nature's vaccine. Unfortunately, politicians and sage advisors, and yes, most of the media, have banked everything on the vaccine as our way out of this, which it is not. Now, the vaccine is a great tool, sure, but it's not everything, which is why we must end this all-out assault on human liberty to get everyone jabbed. It's an obsession, a religious obsession now. Even that right royal numpty, Prince Harry, has muscled in, talking about vaccine misinformation. Misinformation from someone whose royal interview with Oprah Winfrey contained more cracks in it than the hull of the Titanic. Take a look at the Prince in action.
Until every community can access the vaccine and until every community is connected to trustworthy information about the vaccine, then we are all at risk. Families around the world are being overwhelmed by mass-scale misinformation across news media and social media, where those who peddle in lies and fear are creating vaccine hesitancy, which in turn is dividing communities and eroding trust. This is a system we need to break if we are to overcome COVID-19 and the risk of new variants. The Oxford team have done their part. They are heroes of the highest order who gave us an instrument to fight this disease. They are our nation's pride, and we are deeply indebted to their service.
That was the renowned epidemiologist Prince Harry. Ranting and raving, the Ginger Windsor attacked the vaccine hesitancy of Britain, a country that has embraced the vaccine in its millions. We're not vaccine hesitant in Britain, although we're increasingly Harry hesitant. Many disagree with me about this, and we'll debate it on the show. But we can agree that we all want this to end. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to learn to live with the virus and understand that this country cannot afford these questionable restrictions any longer. If it doesn't end now, recent history suggests it never will. Remember 3 weeks to flatten the curve? It's great news that the authorities have seen reason when it comes to jabbing healthy children. It gives me hope, frankly, that data and evidence may now prevail over politics and ideology. With this decision, the cracks in the cosy COVID consensus are beginning to appear. Perhaps the old normal isn't quite as far away as we once feared.